Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to this webinar showcasing UKRI facilities and resources across the breadth of UKRI's 7 research councils, and it's great to have so many people join us today. My name is Alex Amy, and I'm the strategic lead for the new UKRI Cross Research Council Responsive Mode Pilot Scheme, and I will be chairing today's webinar. So the purpose of the webinar is to inform the broad research community about UKRI's facilities and resources available for use on applications to the Cross Research Council Responsive Mode Scheme and potentially other funding opportunities, and provide you with information on how to access them and outline any processes and deadlines that the facilities have in securing access. The webinar will not cover all of UKRI supported facilities, as we don't have enough time to do that, but we will be highlighting those that might be of most relevance to interdisciplinary research projects that go across research council boundaries, and that can be included on applications through the CRCRM scheme. As part of this introduction, I will briefly cover details of the new UKRI pilot scheme and changes that we have made to Round 2 to allow greater access to UKRI facilities on these projects. You'll then hear from a range of UKRI colleagues from across the research councils on a breadth of facilities and resources. Some of these will be specific to particular disciplines, but others could support research across a range of remit areas. And they will just be a high-level overview of the facilities and services, and will highlight any specific access models and timetabling restrictions, and signpost you to where you can find more information. So we are recording the webinar and we will be making it available on the UKRI website, and we will be sharing a copy of the slides after the webinar, along with a copy of the questions and answer document and a link to the recording of the webinar. Closed captioning is available if you need it, but please only use the chat function for technical issues and not questions. If you do have any technical issues, please send a message via the chat function and the team will do their best to support you. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, please put these in the Q&A function and not the chat. You may post questions in the Q&A function throughout the webinar, and my panel of UKRI colleagues giving the presentations will do their best to respond to these during the time we have today. So if you're coming to the webinar with a question on a facility, please wait until that presentation is given for that facility. We've got over 100 people on this webinar right now, so we might have to manage a lot of questions. There will be a short question session at the end of the webinar to answer any questions we may need to answer live. And as I said, a record of the Q&As will be circulated to everyone who has registered and will be uploaded to the UKRI website shortly after today's webinar. And we will pick up any questions that we don't get around to answering during the time in that document. To help the back office team manage your questions and responses, please put the name of the facility and or the presenter that your question refers to at the start of your question. And the question should be about the UKRI facilities and not details about the CRCRM call, unless it's in connection with the facilities access. So this webinar is not aimed at providing any specific details on Round 2 of the CRCRM scheme. Details of the call can be found in the pre-announcement text published on UKRI Funding Finder, and the full call text will be published from the 2nd of September. And we are running 2 identical call-specific webinars on the morning of the 5th and the afternoon of the 11th of September to support applicants interested in applying to the scheme. And links to register for these webinars can be found on the call pre-announcement page. At the end of today's webinar, we will keep it open for a further few minutes after 11:30 to allow you to post any further questions that you have that we will then respond to in the Q&A document. And we also do have a brief feedback survey for the webinar that we will be grateful if you could complete, and the link will be pasted in the chat now and again at the end of the webinar. So just a brief overview of the CRCRM scheme. So this is the Cross Research Council Responsive Mode Scheme, and it's aimed at new interdisciplinary ideas emerging from the research community. And the scheme aims to address a gap in UKRI's current funding provision that was identified in Paul Nurse's review back in 2016, and more recently in David Grant's review of UKRI. The aim of the scheme is to support research that either didn't have a home within UKRI's existing structures or wasn't perceived to have a home by the community. And we really want people to be able to write exciting research applications that reflect their vision for what they want that research to do without having to tweak and bend it so that it fits a particular call or council. And we know how important existing council responsive mode schemes are in supporting research and innovation with transformative outcomes for knowledge, the economy and society. And this scheme aims to do the same for research at the interface between different disciplines by directly incentivising interdisciplinary curiosity-driven research that spans research council remits. And this scheme supplements and complements the outstanding interdisciplinary research that UKRI already supports through our council-led responsive mode schemes and strategic programmes. Therefore, applications that fit within a single research council remit are not eligible for this call. Existing research council responsive mode schemes will continue to support interdisciplinary research applications, both within and across council boundaries through the cross-council remit agreement. So funding for this initiative was prioritised as part of the last spending review, and we have been allocated 65 million to pilot this new scheme over 2 rounds of funding. And this will allow us to assess demand and to test and refine our processes as we go. So this is very much a learning process, and we are developing and delivering the scheme in real time. Projects will be supported for up to 2 years with a full economic cost of between 200,000 and 1.2 million, and with UKRI funding 80% of the full economic cost. So we anticipate making around 36 awards in each round. There's further information on the UKRI website and the round 2 pre-announcement page on the UKRI funding finder. The application process comprises of 2 stages, an outline stage and an invited submission of a full stage application. Round 1 was launched in May last year, and we are just in the process of awarding the successful projects from that round, and we will be announcing those in September. And this will coincide with the opening of the outline stage of round 2, which will open on the 2nd of September. But a pre-announcement with the important information is already on the UKRI website. The outline stage for round 2 will run from September this year to April next year, and the full stage will then run from April to November in 2025. So we have made some minor changes to round 2, in particular some changes to allow better use of UKRI facilities on grants, and I'll just run through these quickly here. So for round 1, we didn't allow any delays to allow access to facilities. However, for round 2, applicants may request a delay to the grant start date to allow access to a UKRI supported facility for up to 12 months from the date of the award letter. And this will be by exception, and we will need to request this at the outline stage and fully justify it. We are also allowing exceptions to the 1.2 million grant maximum to enable access to some of NERC's large research infrastructure facilities, and these facilities are normally available to environmental scientists through separate NERC budgets, and therefore the cap may inhibit applications wanting to use NERC's ship time and facilities for marine polar research, airborne and atmospheric measurements. So applicants wanting to access these facilities will be allowed to exceed the maximum budget limit by up to 250,000 at 100% FEC. And again, we're asking for this to be requested at the outline stage and justified. So just to note, facilities will need to be reimbursed at 100% FEC, but costs associated with facility access will be funded from the grant at 80% FEC. Therefore, host research organisations will be responsible for the remaining 20% of costs. So applicants should discuss access to facilities in a timely manner to get an understanding of facility access processes and timelines, and therefore any needs for delays to the start date of your grant. And as I said earlier, this webinar aims to provide you with that information on those access models and timetabling restrictions that facilities might have, and that you will have to factor in around the outline and full stage application timetables. So with that, I'm going to hand over to our first speaker, which is Edoardo Fiordalisi, for our first presentation. Bear with me a moment.
Yeah.
I'm just going to, bear with me, I'm just going to hand controls to you, Edoardo. There you go, you should have control now.
Cool, thanks, Alex. Yeah, hi everyone, my name is Edoardo Fiordalisi, and I'm Senior Program Manager in the NERC National Capability Research Facilities team. And I'll let my colleague Jacob introduce himself.
Yeah, hi, my name's Jacob Wood. I'm also a Senior Program Manager in the National Capability Team at NERC.
Thanks, Jacob. Today, we will provide an overview of the NERC facilities and research infrastructures for environmental research, including access procedures and requirements, particularly those specific to this call. Yeah, sorry. Okay. The NERC research facilities portfolio includes our scientific support and facilities, providing specialist services, including measurement facilities, our large research infrastructures, enabling national to global scale environmental science, and these include our polar, aerial, and marine capabilities, and our international subscriptions, enabling UK membership and access to international facilities and networks. The NERC research facilities are delivered through the NERC centers that are those listed on the right of this slide. Here we can see where our facilities are located, with some of them located at our research centers, while others are located at universities, but still managed through the centers, like, for example, the IMF, which is the Ion Microprobe Facility, which is managed by the British Geological Survey, but it's based at the University of Edinburgh. And here we can see more in detail some of our facilities from the slide before, which include measurement facilities like the IMF, which we have just mentioned, but also NIF, for example, which is the National Environmental Isotope Facility, or FSF, which is the Field Spectroscopy Facility. Then we also have sample repositories like CCAP, which is the Culture Collection of Algae and Proterozoa, and BOSCORF, which is the British Ocean Sediment Core Research Facility. And also we enable UK access to international networks and facilities, like in the case of ISCAT, which is the European Incoherent Scatter Radar, which is based in Scandinavia. For this call, as Alex mentioned, costs associated with facility access will be funded from the grant at 80%, and the awarded RO will be responsible for the remaining 20%. It is essential that you discuss your proposal with the facility you intend to use ahead of the outline application, and that you follow their pre-submission processes, which may differ between the different facilities, and typically requires at least 2 months, but this may also be more. So please start those conversations with the facilities as soon as possible. I'm now going to hand over to my colleague Jacob, who will introduce our NERC research, our NERC large research infrastructures.
Great, thanks, Eduardo. Yeah, so this follows on from what Alex said at the start, but just to reiterate, applicants can exceed the maximum budget limit by up to £250,000 at 100% FEC for a few of our facilities, the larger ones, which are the ship time and marine facilities, our polar research facilities, as well as our aerial capability, which is the facility for airborne atmospheric measurements, or we'll refer to it as FAM throughout. And we'll go into a little bit more detail on all of these. Obviously, these involve contacting the facility to discuss any sort of feasibility in the project, obtaining the approximate costings so that you know if there is a need to exceed the budget limit, as well as kind of any potential delays that may be, if there's potential issues with scheduling within these facilities, that you may need to use the up to 12-month delay of the start date that Alex mentioned at the start. You'll need to know this at the outline stage. But final costings and final approvals can be determined at the full stage if you are invited to submit. So next slide, please. So just going on to talk a little bit about our ship time and marine facilities. NERC has a number of different facilities, including 3 research vessels, the RRS James Cook and the RRS Discovery, which are operated by the National Oceanography Centre, or NOC, as well as the RRS Sir David Attenborough, which is of famous Boating McBoatface fame. But alongside this, there's also the National Marine Equipment Pool, which covers a load of things like autonomous systems, so 6 long-range auto subs, as well as gliders and vehicles that can move over the surface, and remotely operated vehicles, coring, dredging facilities, potential trawling, geophysics capability, as well as oceanographic sampling, which is things like looking at the conductivity temperature depth sampling, or vertical microstructure profilers that can be placed within the water to measure various aspects that may be relevant, as well as moorings. But I think the most important thing that comes alongside the National Marine Equipment Pool is the highly skilled technicians that are there as part of this, who can help prepare, deploy, recover and reset, as well as actually fix if things go wrong. They are absolutely invaluable to doing any sort of marine research. And using the National Marine Equipment Pool does get you access to that valuable pool of resource as well. Next slide, please. Just to note on the marine side of things, you have to contact us, basically, is the one takeaway, on marineplanning@nerc.ukri.org, or you can email me to discuss any sort of ship time and equipment needs, including the feasibility of scheduling. So what this actually involves is completing an online ship time and marine equipment, which is an SME form, or autonomous deployment form, which are available from the website linked in here, but you can also, you'll be sent these slides, so you can find it from there. The ask is essentially, you have to submit that 2 months before the closure of the call, and it should include a description of the research, where you'll be going, what ships you think you'll need or why, and what equipment will be needed. And just to note that funding has to be confirmed by April 1st to be considered for the following year's programme. So, for example, if you wanted to be considered for 25-26, you would have had to have funding confirmed by the 1st of April this year. Next slide, please. So some tips on the marine planning side of things. Main thing is speak to us, start early, provide any details that you have, anything that you think might be relevant, be as accurate as you can, but consider flexibility where there might be able to be. So if there are a range of dates that could potentially work for any research that you want to do, consider what that might look like. But then the important thing is to submit it. Once you submit it, we can iterate things, we can have those conversations with yourselves and with the operators of the ships, so we can actually kind of figure out how it's going to work, if it can work, and we can go from there. And the bit on the left is just a little bit on the process. But that final point in the red box, talk to us. Please get in touch. We can help liaise with anyone you need to, or answer any questions, no matter how simple they may seem. And hopefully we can be there to support as much as we can, so you can potentially use these facilities in here. And then I think that's me handing back over to Eduardo.
Great, thank you. In terms of polar research facilities, if you require NERC BAS Antarctic logistics support, you must email the Antarctic Access Office at BAS to discuss feasibility of your proposal, timing and approximate cost before the outline stage. You must then complete a pre-award operational support planning questionnaire online by the time your outline application is submitted. Similarly, for the NERC UK Arctic station, you should contact the station manager to discuss the support required, ideally at least eight weeks ahead of the outline deadline. And after that, complete an application form by the outline stage submission. Similarly, again, if you wish to apply for aerial capabilities, in particular FAM, you should start the process early by contacting the FAM operation manager, and you can find all of those contacts in the call guidance document. And after this initial discussion, you should then submit a full FAM project proposal form that will result in a technical assessment that is required at the full stage application. I just would like to finish by providing a link to our facility page, where you can find additional details of all of our facilities and our contacts in case you have any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Eduardo and Jacob. So I'm now going to hand over to, I'm handing over to Hugh now. Bear with me while I just swap and get Hugh up online. I'm just trying to find you.
Thanks, Alex. I have control, just to let you know.
Have you got control? I can't.
I have control.
I can't actually see you.
People don't need to see me. It's fine.
Okay, I will find you. You can start.
No dramas. Okay, thank you very much, Alex. Good morning, everyone. My name is Hugh Mortimer. I'm Associate Director at the STFC National Laboratories. It's a real pleasure to talk to you about our capabilities. Jacob and Eduardo did an amazing job of really introducing kind of the requirements that I think all of the research councils today are probably going to be asking of you in terms of contacting the departments in advance to applying for this call, and making sure that you've had a look and checked at all of the different website options and the access options for each of our facilities. And like NERC, STFC and our national laboratories has a really wide-ranging, complex portfolio of capabilities that we are promoting as part of this call. So, and again, like Eduardo mentioned, in STFC, our national laboratories, we've got a really huge number of laboratories. And so I've got the unenviable task of trying to introduce them in 10 minutes and highlighting what support we could potentially offer as part of this. Really, I've only got the opportunity to name check the departments. Each one of these descriptions could be like an hour-long presentation. So I really encourage you to go away and have a look at the websites of each of our departments, facilities, to highlight what we could do to really help you. But the key message that I really want to get across is that while you may not think STFC is your research council, actually it might be. We completely recognize that STFC has a mission statement which aims to unlock the secrets of the universe, which really doesn't limit kind of what we're doing here. And I think that's because STFC really is an interdisciplinary cross-research council facility. And what we're there to do is really to support everyone's research, whether that's cultural heritage through to life sciences, through to kind of the core discipline, STFC, kind of particle physics, astronomy, etc. But we're really there to have the kind of the interdisciplinary activities and to fund the large scale facilities like the ones highlighted by the NERC. And actually that some of the ones I'll present in a second will highlight the fact that there's a lot of interdisciplinary, because some of those facilities that were presented in NERC's presentation were kind of touched upon in mine as well. We recognize we don't do a particularly good job of advertising what we do, and so this is a really nice opportunity to kind of showcase what and how our facilities could support you. Our large scale facilities are really there to look from across the scales, from the microscopic, the atomic level, cellular level, through to the macroscopic, whether you're looking at planetary, galactic, universe scales. And so we're kind of really kind of bridging those gaps. And what we'll be presenting here is really kind of the brief introduction of how we potentially access what we have available. The national laboratories are spread across the UK, and we have 5 major sites, starting up in Edinburgh, which is the UK Astronomy Technology Centre, which has its own capabilities, which I'll speak on in a second. We also have, if the clicky button works, the Daresbury Laboratory up in the northwest of England, which really focuses on particle physics, supercomputing facilities, and detector technologies. We also have our Chilbolton Observatory in Hampshire, which is run and operated by STFC, but on behalf of NERC and of the Met Office, which again, talk about in a second. And then we have our largest site, the Rutherford Appleton Laboratory in Oxfordshire, which has a number of departments, a number of facilities which really span the range of the sciences. So if we jump directly into what the Daresbury Laboratory has on offer, Effectively, DESRI has been around for over 60 years and has been focused on providing new technologies around detecting particles, detector technologies, and accelerating. So we've got a really strong heritage of technologies around cryogenics, accelerators, and detectors. So the Cockcroft Institute is there to provide that core link into industry, but also academia, about developing new particle accelerators. One of the common themes that you'll find from every department that I mentioned and facility is that they'll have this core capability, and then every spin-off element to it, whether it's the technology development or the software development and the computing, is there to be used by other research disciplines. So while Cockcroft is there to kind of look at particle accelerators, really those kind of cryogenics, vacuum technologies, detector technologies are there to be able to support a range of different disciplines. And that's why it's linked to the Aztec facility, which again is there to kind of look at the particle accelerator work that we do in both the departments in the Harwell campus, but also our international accelerators in CERN and around the world. The Hartree Centre is there really to kind of support the supercomputing data and analytical side of things, including AI processing and the technologies around supercomputing infrastructure. Again, the modeling capabilities range and span the different disciplines. So they look from everything from pharmaceuticals to engineering sciences. So again, please do go online to have a look at whether their capabilities matches your needs. Moving up north to the Astronomy Technology Centre up in Edinburgh. Again, their primary focus was on building state-of-the-art instrumentation for our worldwide network of telescopes. From that perspective, they've got a huge capability in optics, optical control, detector technologies, there's a common theme here, cryogenics, and also adaptive optics. So the adaptive optics element can be used from everything from microscopy through to really unique imaging. Their technology center is also aimed at bridging the gaps into different thematic areas, including biomedical imaging, climate change. So again, while you might not think Astronomy Technology Center is something that you can support your work, please do go and have a look at what they do. Now, the Rutherford Appleton Laboratory, again, so much going on at Harwell that really the name check of each one of these sites is going to be all I can do at this stage. So starting with the Central Laser Facility, which really provides kind of the high-tech laser technologies, from high power down to low power, but looking at research fields from chemistry to material science. They support studies at extreme conditions through to controlled environments. And so the Central Laser Facility has a really wide range of optical, fluorescence, imaging capabilities through to plasma physics studies, looking at the extreme ends of the spectrum. Talking about the spectrum, the Central Laser Facility does cover a really wide range from fluorescence, X-rays, all the way through to the kind of far infrareds. It operates on an access system, so researchers can propose their own ideas and research experiments, and again, a bit of a range of different ways of accessing it, from free at the point of access through to collaborative opportunities. ISIS, some of you may be familiar with one or two of these different facilities that we have access available. That doesn't mean this is the sole capability. Because all of these research facilities are based on one site, we can span the different facilities to support really wide-ranging, really new areas of study. So ISIS is a neutron and muon source, and it offers really another way of probing the atomic structure. It's basically a large microscope that really helps, again, advances in physics, chemistry, material sciences, engineering, life sciences. And again, it's got a really easy, user-friendly kind of proposal system, free at the point of access. So really kind of facilitating your potential research projects through this kind of unique source. The diamond light source, again, is a really different but interesting way of looking at internal structures of materials at the molecular and atomic level. It's a really high energy, intense radiation source. In the X-rays, it's a synchrotron radiation source. And again, it spans the range of material sciences. But because of the unique way that diamond is funded, it really has a large role to play in biological investigations. So again, different ways of accessing it. Please do check out the website. Now, technology department, RAL space, and scientific computing and particle physics departments have a slightly different access system to the proposal free at the point of access as a CLF, ISIS, and Diamond. Those departments have huge capabilities in developing new technologies from the macro to the micro scale, sensor systems, but they work more in a collaborative way. So looking at what they can do to support your research, whether it's from the modeling, control systems through to novel technology systems, is really a fantastic place to try and develop new systems. Then finally, on the last couple of slides, Chilbolton Observatory, again, showcasing how STFC works collaboratively across the research councils. Chilbolton is there to support atmospheric research as well as radio communications to astronomy and low Earth orbit satellites. It has a huge range of meteorological observing systems from a 25-meter steerable rain radar and antenna through to ground-based astronomy systems. Supporting atmospheric research and space-based observing is really got quite a wide range of activities. And then finally, the Bulby Underground Laboratory is the UK's deepest working laboratory at 1.1 kilometers below ground. It has a low radiation environment that enables us to do some really interesting low radiation environment studies. It's used in a whole range of different experiments, including astrobiology to planetary science, looking at basically the low biosphere and the cryosphere. So the underground laboratory really has this wide range of capabilities. And so please, again, do look at what it has to offer.
Just going to give you a time flag, Hugh.
Thank you. This is my last slide. Basically, if you've got any questions, please contact me at any stage, but also go and check out the websites. That's me done.
Thank you, Hugh. I'm going to now hand over to Robert, who, bear with me a moment as we hand over. Right. Robert, you should now have control of the slides.
Yes, thank you very much. I do have control of the slides. Thank you. So today I'm here to talk to you about facilities and resources that primarily support the health and biosciences research community in the UK. My name is Robert Deller. I'm a Programme Manager at the Medical Research Council. My particular focus is on structural studies and biophysics, but what I'm going to talk to you today extends across the entirety of MRC's remit. So firstly, I'd like to introduce the research complex at Harwell. As the name suggests, this sits on the Harwell campus. And this investment, since inception, has been supported not only by the Medical Research Council, but also STFC, EPSRC, BBSRC, NERC, and the Diamond Light Source. And it's important to highlight here that the research complex at Harwell is open and applicable to researchers across the entire breadth of the life and physical sciences spectrum. And at the real core mission of the research complex is to help deliver transformative impact in both science and technology. And it really has a very strong multidisciplinary ethos in order to achieve this. And in doing so, it has assembled a great and extensive range of teams of researchers. Not only are these researchers based or visitors from universities, but also from a range of different national facilities and also a growing number of micro SMEs who are tenants within the building. Understandably, the research complex builds upon those synergies with other facilities on the Harwell campus, some of which we've already heard today. This includes, but of course is not limited to, the Diamond Light Source, the Electron Bioimaging Centre, the ISIS Neutron Muon Source, Central Laser Facility, and Rosalind Franklin Institute. As I've mentioned, the research complex is home to a wide variety of different research groups across the life and physical sciences. And it's really there to foster and create a conducive environment for collaboration across different research disciplines. The science and research at the research complex is focused and centered around three core themes: functional materials, cellular and molecular biology, imaging, and spectroscopy. And what the research complex offers its users and prospective users is access to a broad range of instrumentation, but also more importantly, expertise. And that this is available to users both in the short and long term. Short term, for example, may simply be using a particular piece of equipment over the course of 1 week, whereas in the long term, it may be something which is more integral or embedded with the entirety of a research project. To sort of really do a deep dive into the opportunities that the research complex provides, I really recommend looking at their websites. And also, if you are considering a request to access the research complex, this should very much be done in advance of any form of application. And again, this should be done by contacting the research complex directly via the details provided on their website. It's important to highlight here that access is free for academic research groups who will or do hold a research grant funded by one or more of the funding research councils I highlighted. But also, in addition to this, you're allowed to ask for travel and subsistence costs that actually help facilitate your actual physical visits to the facility as well. And to sort of really drill home here is that the research complex is a continuously evolving entity, and it really is open to welcoming new groups and new individuals on a regular basis. Moving on, I'd like to speak to the UK Biobank. So the UK Biobank is a large longitudinal study that has and continues to follow the health of around 500,000 UK volunteer participants. And in doing so, it has generated a large-scale biomedical database and a really rich research resource. And within this resource, this contains a lot of de-identified genetic, lifestyle, and health information, but also a growing number of different biological samples from those participants as well. And we can just see this there on the right-hand side, how these are all interlinked with one another to help understand people's health outcomes. The UK Biobank is an entity that, in the last 10 to 12 years, has continued to grow and expand on what it's able to provide its user base. Importantly, access costs to use the UK Biobank can be included within UKRI grant applications. But then, to register as part of the UK Biobank, apply for access, and manage any resultant access, it's important to emphasise that this is all done centrally via the UK Biobank website. Understandably, all applications for access are assessed, and they're done so by an access committee. And I guess to reiterate some of the points we've heard already, it's really important that if you have a real good feel of what your needs may be, that you engage with the facility and you have those discussions and applications well in advance of when you may need that data or information. Following on, I'd like to introduce the Mary Lyons Centre. So the Mary Lyons Centre is also located within the Harwell campus. And the Mary Lyons Centre serves as the UK's national facility for mouse genetics. And it's there to help the use of mouse models to help inform the preclinical study of human diseases. It has a range of services, and some of these services include the free archiving of mouse lines to protect them for future use. Understandably, therefore, it allows distribution of those same mouse lines from the archive. It also helps to assist in the breeding and phenotyping of genetically altered mice, and provides a growing number of genome engineering services to help individuals generate new mouse models. Understandably, it is very much proactively committed to implementing the 3 Rs. So this is the refinement, reduction, and replacement of the use of animals in research as well. Support for the Mary Lyon Centre is provided to the scientific community through the National Mouse Genetics Network and various other projects. And it's also important to highlight that the Mary Lyon Centre also encompasses the Advanced Training Centre. So this is a newly designed, purpose-built centre at Harwell that aids the Mary Lyon Centre to be able to share and deliver on its world-class practical and theoretical training courses that it provides. Access costs for the Mary Lyon Centre can be included within UKRI grant applications. And again, inquiries should be made directly with the Mary Lyon Centre via their website, such that they can understand what your needs may be and how that may link with the services that they're able to provide. Moving on, I'd like to touch upon the MRC's Biomedical NMR Centre. So this is a centre which is located within the Francis Crick Institute in London. And this is really the NMR Centre for the studies of different biological macromolecules, with a very much embedded expertise available locally. And it really kind of encompasses a do-it-with-me approach to the experiments and services it provides. The centre has a growing number of different capabilities, and many of the instruments available for access also have a very, very high throughput capacity compared to what's available elsewhere. This is delivered across 5 different spectrometers. These have a range of different field strengths. So within the solution state, this ranges from 600 all the way up to 950 megahertz. In addition to this, there's also solid state capability at 700 megahertz. But not only do they have these different field strengths on offer across the 5 different instruments, they also have a vast array of different probes, which really expands on the overall capabilities and availability of services and experiments that you're able to do at the centre. Applications to be a user of the centre can be done either as an individual or as a consortium. Typically, a consortium may be a group of 3 or 4 different PIs or a university department, for example. Access to the centre is free, but it is competitive, and it is administered through an annual allocation exercise. The next deadline for applications of which is the 15th of August. And applicants are really highly encouraged in the first instance to contact the facility director, Dr. Jeff Kelly, in the first instance, again, so they can sort of discuss what your proposed needs may be and how that may be best served by the centre as well. Apologies. Sorry. Lastly, I'd obviously like to highlight that today I've not been able to discuss a completely exhaustive list of facilities and resources that are supported by MRC. And a range of different MRC supported facilities and resources are detailed on our UKRI MRC website. Many of these different facilities and resources are supported in conjunction with other UKRI research councils, a growing number of different research charities, and also other government bodies such as AHRC. And this includes numerous facilities that have been and will be discussed by others today. And that this list online is continuously evolving as the capabilities and requirements of the health and biosciences community changes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Robert. Okay, so I'm now going to hand over to Tim and Karim. Bear with me a moment. Tim, you should now have control.
Thanks, Alex. I have control. Excellent. Well, yeah, good morning, everybody. Thank you for the introduction, Alex. I'm Tim Shuttleworth, Head of Research Infrastructure at BBSRC, and I'm delighted to be joined by my colleague Karim, who is Head of Technical Genomics at the Earlham Institute. And we'll quickly run you through some of the facilities and resources that we support here at BBSRC. So much like my colleagues that have come before, and I'm sure follow as well, we support a number of advanced technology facilities and other resources across the kind of range and scale, including high performance compute, bioinformatics and computational services, data visualization and modeling, genome sequencing, seed collections, obviously specific to the biosciences, and kind of other data and digital infrastructures too. And also we partner with many of our colleagues and other councils in supporting things like the laser installations, neutron and synchrotron light sources, and other facilities at the research complex at Harwell. We don't necessarily manage our facilities and resources centrally at BBSRC, so I will kind of repeat the messages that colleagues before me have said, which is if you are looking to use any of the facilities and resources that BBSRC supports, then please do contact those facilities as soon as possible, and they can talk you through kind of costing and access arrangements for these. And I'll put a link there to our website where there is some more information on how to do that for BBSRC. Here, I'd like to give you kind of an example of the breadth of things that we do support. It's by no means exhaustive, but it at least gives you kind of a flavour of some of the things that we do support. So first and foremost on the right-hand side are the National Bioscience Research Infrastructures, NBRIs as we call them. And these are specific facilities and resources operated by our 8 strategically supported institutes, ranging from kind of genomics and the biofoundry at Earlham Institute, germplasm resource unit at John Innes Centre, the high and low containment facilities at the Pirbright Institute, and other resources and facilities at Quadram, Roslin and the Rothamsted Institute. We also fund kind of other facilities and resources, including the Nottingham Arabidopsis Stock Centre, Seismic, which provides a singular and subcellular sampling and analysis of living cells. And as colleagues mentioned before, we support the Electron Bioimaging Centre based on the Harwell campus. And yeah, again, a link below there to a list of other facilities and resources that we support. Again, by no means exhaustive, but please do kind of get in contact with any resources and facilities that you are interested in. On the left, just to highlight some of the international infrastructures that we support, which are available to use for the wider research community. So there's EMBL EBI, which is essentially the world's kind of premier institution to support bioinformatics, and has the most comprehensive range of freely available and up-to-date molecular and data resources. We also support pan-European infrastructures such as Elixir and Eurobioimaging. They respectively support research in kind of bioinformatics and data around life sciences, and then also access to biological and biomedical imaging, training and data services, both within the UK and across Europe. Both of them have UK nodes, which are linked to in my slide. So if you are interested in using any of these, please do get in contact with the node coordinators. They'd be more than happy to help you engage with them. And finally, just a quick plug for our infrastructure strategic framework, which we published back in March. This has been developed with the bioscience community over a fairly long period. And it really captured the broad range of kind of facilities, resources, and so on that we kind of that fall under our infrastructure portfolio. It talks about kind of BBSRC's role in the landscape and our strategic objectives in terms of investing in future infrastructure. And then also kind of outlines 7 key principles that we will consider as part of future infrastructure investments. So not necessarily relevant to this particular conversation, but kind of perhaps worth looking at your convenience. Okay, well, that's it for me. I'll now hand over to Karim.
Thank you very much, team. So I'm Karim Galbi. I'm head of technical genomics at the Earlham Institute, and I lead one of these NBRIs that team mentioned, operated by the BBSRC Institute. We actually have 2 NBRIs at the Earlham Institute, and we'll go through a little deeper dive into each of these NBRIs. I just want to say that before I go into this, the other NBRIs at the other institute might operate in different ways. So I would strongly encourage you to contact them directly, as early as possible, as my colleagues have already said, to figure out how how to engage with them and what the requirements are. So the 2 NBRIs that we operate at the Earlham Institute have a similar way to engage with the community. So we work closely with our faculty, but these facilities and these NBRIs are fully open, completely accessible, obviously developed in the context of BBSRC research, but we can and we do work with other councils as well, and I'm very happy to support this particular cross-council call. The first one, the transformative genomics one, which is the one I lead, is run in partnership with a NERC facility, so the NERC Environmental Omics facility at Liverpool, at the Centre for Genomic Research, and I also have a note in Sheffield. And most of that collaboration is around technical development for genomics technologies. So the NBRIs that we run have really three ways of engaging with our community, which goes beyond bioscience and biotechnology. The first one is core. What we do is providing specialist services to our users, but we're also very happy to be involved in collaboration, especially when it comes to technical development, but also when it comes to training. So we participate in training courses. Some are online, some are on site, some are wet lab based, some are more bioinformatics based. But we're very active in this area. We also have the opportunity to have you come here, work with us for a period of time on a particular project if it requires something that we don't support as one of our specialist services. The third way to engage with us is around tools and resources that we make available to our community. This could be protocols, wet lab protocols, it could be software, so our GitHub repository, and it could be for maybe the most recent technology best practice on how to get the most out of it. So transformative genomics itself is very much the ambition we have with this NBRI is to engage or help us and our users engage with new technologies in genomics, which we think have the potential to transform the biology. We're already transforming biology. So we're currently working along 3 main themes or 3 main capabilities, spatial and single cell analysis, and we have an entire facility dedicated to that. That's our newest one, with the ability to go down to cellular, or in some cases subcellular level, looking at gene expression, for example. Long-read sequencing is the second one. So long-read sequencing is a technology that's been established for a while now, but it's really starting to come into mainstream and expanding into different areas. So we have a strong focus on this. And finally, genomics at scale, the ability to process a large number of samples, not only with the sequencing capacity to match, but also upstream of isolating the sample, isolating DNA, RNA, and having automation LLM to process large remote samples, but also the software to track these samples across a large number of complex projects. In terms of training for transformative genomics, we involve in a number of these, which are available on our website. Recently, we're involved in base modification training, looking at using Oxford nanopore. We also have a genome annotation training course, and more recently on some of these more cutting-edge transformative technologies, we're looking at spatial transcriptomics in plants. Can I have the next slide, please, Tim? So the second NBRI that we host at the Earlham Institute is the Earlham Biofoundry, and that's led by my colleague Carolina Grandelis. Contact email address is there at the bottom. And in a similar way, the Biofoundry has a number of workflows that they make available to the community to support large-scale biology. There's a very strong emphasis around automation for this workflow and bioengineering. So, for example, nanoscale DNA assembly or validation of DNA assembly using sequencing, but also bacterial transformation and colony picking and arraying, etc. They also act as a biorepository, so they can offer storage for samples or DNA parts, short-term or long-term, and -80 degrees. And in terms of tools and resources, I know that, for example, they make the vast majority of their automation scripts, laboratory automation scripts through a GitHub repository. So these two NBRIs are very much community focused. Both of them work more than 50% of our work for this NBRI is actually with users outside of the institute. It was actually 65% for transplant tissue genomics last year. We're very happy to support you for this call. The earlier you contact us, the better. Please engage with us early, especially if your needs don't necessarily fall in one of the many services that we've set up, and you need some more collaborative approach or more technical development approach, or you're thinking about collaborating around training, please contact us early. The contact details were on these two slides. So Carolina here is on the slide, and feel free to contact me for transformative genomics, or more generally speaking, to discuss how the NBRI can support you. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Karim and Tim. I'm now going to hand over to Kay. Kay, you should have control.
Yes, I do. Thank you very much. So I'm Kay Young. I'm a senior manager in the research infrastructure team at EPSRC, and today myself and Richard will go through some of the engineering and physical sciences research facilities. I'll let Richard introduce himself.
Hi, yeah, I'm Richard Bailey. I'm the Senior Portfolio Manager in Research Infrastructure and looking after the high performance computing. Okay, so I'll start off with our first slide, which covers the AHRC, which is the UK National Supercomputing Service. There's a picture of it up on the top right there. So this can cover modelling and simulation activities right across length scales from quantum up to modeling galaxies. So I guess I say most of the access details can come from the web link that's kind of up in the chat right now, but also on the slides. So that has the wealth of detail about how to actually access it, the service, kind of all documentation about kind of the software codes that are currently supported on it, training courses, a whole range of training courses to kind of get familiar with the system. So one of the pages on the website is about how do you actually get the access. So essentially you follow, there's a tab there that says access to EPSRC grants and fellowships. So you follow that process. And I guess the things to particularly note is that it won't be cost on the grant. There's no actual financial cost on the grant. The resources that you request will be supported either through the EPSRC allocation that already exists on the system, or if you're a NERC remit applicant, then it will be supported through the NERC allocation on the system. So there's no cost on the grant. One thing we do ask you to do is that if you're going to apply to use AHRC2, is that you talk to the service desk, the AHRC2 service desk, contact details on the website, and you work with them to do the technical assessment form, which basically lists, and I'll ask a number of questions about what you can do on it, and also kind of what experience you have of computing, and also making sure that what you plan to do is technically fit on the system. So you don't need to submit that at the time of application, but we will require that to be seen and agreed before you receive the allocation, just to check that it will actually work on the system. And I think that's all I wanted to say on this particular point. So I shall hand back to Kay.
Thank you, Richard. So now I'll just run through a range of engineering and physical sciences facilities over the next 3 slides, but just to cover some general points. The first point being covered by Alex at the start already, that all costs associated with facility access will be funded at 80%, and we expect the research organisation to cover the remaining 20%, so the facilities are reimbursed at 100%. one point to note is EPSRC does fund a wide variety of national research facilities, but note that only the facilities funded through EPSRC that we mentioned in this webinar, so the 8 ones that I'll mention over the next few slides, are available in this scheme. And I want to encourage you to contact the facility, just as what Richard said, it's to discuss about feasibility and appropriateness, how suitable your project is before submitting your application to UKRI. So over the next few slides, I'll give you websites and also email addresses to make sure that you have the contact details to discuss your project with the facility before you submit your grant application. Some facilities offer free at point of access, so if you contact them, you'll be able to discuss with them whether they offer that. Also, the facilities, they have multiple sites across the UK, and some of them offer remote access as well. So I think these are all details that if you contact the facility directly, you'll be able to find out more information. So I'll give you a whistle-stop tour of the facilities funded by EPSRC. So the first one being the National Research Facility for Electron Paramagnetic Resonance Spectroscopy, so EPR spectroscopy. They have a wide range of microwave EPR and continuous wave EPR. So using those instruments, it can allow you to have information about any unpaired electrons in systems that you have. So the website and contact details the UKRI team have posted into the chat. Another facility that we fund is the National X-ray Computed Tomography Facility, and they offer 3D imaging of samples. So they've worked on a range of different materials before. The staff there have experience on physical sciences samples, but also cultural heritage samples, geological samples as well. So definitely a facility that has worked across different research council remit before. So the website is on the slide if you want to know further information on what capabilities they offer and the access mechanisms. And then the last on the slide is SuperSTEM, which is the most advanced aberration-corrected electron microscopy facility that we have in the UK. They offer high energy resolution single atom spectroscopy. So further information again can be found in the website with their inquiries email address on this slide. So as with all of the other facilities, please contact the facility before submitting any proposals. Once you've had an initial discussion with the facility, they'll ask you to submit a short form, a short proposal, usually about 2 or 3 pages maximum, that will be evaluated by the facility. And then I'll move on to the UK High Field Solid State NMR facilities, or nuclear magnetic resonance. They have a range of NMR equipment at Warwick, up to 850 megahertz and 1 gigahertz spectrometer. That allows characterization of samples, and there's a range of applications that NMR can help to support, including material science, chemistry, biology, earth science, and physics. So the website here allows you to complete a web form, so please have a look at their website to understand more about that facility. There is also the UK X-ray Material Science Facility. It's a synchrotron beamline that offers synchrotron radiation at the European Synchrotron Radiation Facility at Grenoble. So they offer diffraction, X-ray scattering, spectroscopy, and other capabilities. And again, the contact details are on this website, on the slide. And then the UK National Ion Beam Centre offers ion beam modification, analysis, infrastructure, and expertise. So they have a ticket system. They also welcome commercial users as well. So please contact the facility directors through their email addresses, and also have a look at their website. And then finally, on my whistle-stop tour of these facilities, these last two. One is the National Physical Laboratories terahertz facility. They offer a range of terahertz capabilities, and that has applications in meteorology and wireless communications. Also, the terahertz waves can penetrate different materials, so they offer non-destructive testing as well. So for their access model, they specified that it's £1,500 per day, excluding VAT, and the person to contact is Mira Naftali at MPL. And then finally, there's an electron diffraction facility that's based at Southampton and Warwick Universities. They offer electron diffraction capability and expertise in structure determination. They work on a range of different samples, zeolites, pharmaceuticals, supramolecular chemicals. So here's the website and the contact detail for that facility. So after my whistle-stop tour of those 8 facilities, I'd encourage you to go and have a look at their website to see what capabilities they offer. You must contact the facility before including the facility in your grant application to make sure it's feasible and it's suitable for the facility. Some facility might have a cap in terms of how many proposals they're able to support. And I'll just reiterate that the facilities that I've mentioned are the ones that we can offer for the from the range of EPSRC facilities that we have. So thank you very much, and I'll pass back to Alex.
Thank you very much, Kay and Richard. So I'm now handing over to Matt. Matt, you should now have control of the slides.
Yeah, that's worked. Thank you. Hi, I'm Matt Neal from ESRC, and I'm joined by my colleague Rosie French as well. ESRC is the Economic and Social Research Council, and we fund around 30 data resources and services. And you can see on this slide a Venn diagram which explains the structure of the 3 programs within ESRC that makes that investment and which structures my presentation today. A key point is that a lot of nearly all of the data resources and services that we fund are available free at the point of use. That's not exclusively the case, but for a very significant majority, that is the case. But also because these data these data include confidential data about individuals, that data is very often safeguarded, and therefore there would be an accreditation and access procedure that you would need to go through as researchers. So that's very much needs to be factored in part of developing your applications. We also fund a portfolio of training investments, which I will go on to talk about at the end of my presentation. So to talk about the data resources that ESRC invests in, one of the key groupings within that is our portfolio of surveys. And within that portfolio itself, we have a grouping between the longitudinal study and the cross-sectional surveys. So the longitudinal studies are studies which follow the same individuals over time. And often that's over the course of their entire lives. And you can see here some of the key longitudinal studies we fund. That includes Understanding Society, which is a household panel survey, and also a number of birth cohort studies managed by the Centre for Longitudinal Studies. I think there are 2 key points about these surveys on this slide. Firstly, they're not hypothesis driven. They are general purpose data collections intended for a range of research applications. And secondly, many of them already include data which is of interest, particularly beyond the social sciences. That actually includes genomic data in the case of the 1958 cohort study, and a lot of data about health and the environment and biomedical samples as well. So they're already being used for a range of interdisciplinary and sort of non-social science applications at the current time. We also have a number of really nice other cross-sectional surveys. I imagine the election studies are extremely busy right now, and there's also some international surveys that we fund, as well as co-funding things like NatSal, which is the survey of sexual attitudes and lifestyles, which again would have obvious uses beyond the social sciences. Another key grouping within our portfolio is the census data. Now, this census data is produced by the UK's 3 statistical agencies. The ESRC makes a very significant investment in making that data available to researchers for use. So this includes 3 support units for the UK's data-linked census longitudinal studies, as well as a unit supporting cross-UK analysis. The UK Data Service, which I'll say more about in a second, has a very significant census function within it. And also ESRC leads on funding and making available historical data. And again, the geographical granularity of this data, the inclusion of information about things like health, and its eminent suitability for linkage to other data sets means that already there are many interdisciplinary applications for this. Another key area of our portfolio is the data services. I think in particular, we need to highlight the UK Data Service. UKDS makes available nearly 10,000 data sets for research. The great majority, if not all of those, if it's non-commercial research, then those are available free to use. They also provide training and user support and all sorts of things like that. I'd also highlight here CLOSER. I've highlighted our portfolio of longitudinal studies, or CLOSER exists to support the use of those longitudinal studies, and it also supports and has information about studies which ESRC does not fund and which were not listed on my slide, including those from the biological sciences. So I'd encourage any of you thinking about using that longitudinal data to certainly see what CLOSER has to offer. So in terms of how to find out about what data is available, I won't go through all of the detail here, but I've mentioned UK Data Service. There's also the CLOSER Discovery tool within CLOSER, which is well worth looking at. And this slide gives some further information about key places where you could search for data resources to use. But I think also a key point is that a lot of the data is available directly for free through the investments websites themselves. So, for instance, the European Social Survey and British Election Study make that data directly available, and therefore you just need to visit the website and see what they've got to offer. So I'm now going to move on to talk about Administrative Data Research UK, which is a programme hosted by ESRC. My colleague Rosie is here, so please do chip in, Rosie, if you would like to do so. So ADR UK is a partnership of 4 partners operating in each of the UK nations. Administrative data is data which is collected by public bodies, and this data has a huge range of potential research applications, and again is eminently suitable for linkage, which can really empower those analyses that you might undertake. On the slide here, you can see a map of the locations of the trusted research environments and also the SafePod network. Many of you who are based in universities will very likely have a SafePod at your institution. But I think a key point cutting across all of this is the point that the data is very likely safeguarded, but the exact nature of accessing that data and where you would have to go would vary depending on the data set or the data resources that you are interested in using for your project. So we wanted to flag sort of as a case study about the potential of what ADR UK can offer Data First, which is a cross-justice system for England and Wales data resource. And within the box here, you can see all of the many data sets which are produced by the justice system, which are available for research projects and which can be linked to do some really powerful analyses. So I'm not going to read all of this out, but you can see here there's prisoner custodial journey data, there's civil court data, there's Crown Court data, and this can enable some really powerful research applications. And I know that ADR UK are, for instance, already talking with mathematics academics about some of the research applications for this. So there can, and indeed there already are, these interdisciplinary applications beyond the sort of core social sciences. So again, I've said that depending on what you want to use and how the data access process will vary. But just to illustrate that for Data First, if you wanted to use that data, you would need to go to the SAIL Databank website. SAIL is an investment hosted by the University of Swansea, and they have a two-stage scoping process, two-stage access process, which will begin with the use of a scoping form. You would then be contacted and supported by data analysts at SAIL, who would help you to go through that process. So this illustrates that the process to actually get to the data can be significant and needs to be factored into the development of your project. Before I move on, Rosie, is there anything you would like to add?
Thanks, Matt. We do also make data available in England and Scotland and Northern Ireland, but the significance of the data in SAIL, and there's more information in the link, is that it's possible to link it to lots of other kinds of data as well as the justice data. Certainly the England and Wales census is a significant data set to link to. And I think it's the scale of the data once linked that opens up the possibilities to use techniques beyond the social science discipline and reaching across into other disciplines. But plenty of information on all of that on our website.
Thanks. So just thinking back to that Venn diagram I presented at the start, we had those 3 interlinked programs within ESRC. So I'm now going to sort of conclude by talking about Smart Data Research UK, which is the 3rd of those programs. And Smart Data Research UK is a UKRI investment which exists for the whole of the UK research community to use, but it's led and hosted by ESRC. So the first question we would all have is, what is smart data? Well, as you can see from the pictures here, it's data which is generated through our everyday interactions with the digital world. And just from these pictures, you can see the transaction data, data from wearable health trackers, data that might be obtained from smart energy meters, all these sorts of smart data. And whether it's health data or energy data, hopefully you can see that there will be significant potential interdisciplinary applications for that. And that's certainly an objective of Smart Data UK to enable that. SDI UK is a relatively new program in UKRI, but it already has active investments with data that's available right now and ready to use. So this includes the Consumer Data Research Centre and the Urban Big Data Centre. And you can see, I won't read it all out, but you can see from the themes on this slide with things like urban mobility, health and well-being, labour markets, urban governance. There are a very broad range of potential research applications, including beyond or sort of working alongside the social sciences. Smart Data Research UK hope to announce in autumn 2024 4 to 6 new data services, and these will be linked to SDR UK's thematic pillars: productivity and prosperity, sustainability, digital society, and health and well-being. So again, I won't read through all of the detail of this, but ESRC has quite a mature portfolio of training and skills investments, which have a significant emphasis on data. These include the National Centre for Research Methods, and then also significant activity within some of the infrastructure that I've already outlined. And again, I would encourage you to access this and consider how that might augment your application. So in terms of getting in touch with any of the resources and services used, the best thing to do is to visit their websites and find the direct contact information. That's a point that colleagues have already made today. But if you have general inquiries to ESRC as a funder, then the contact details for the 3 programs I've outlined are on this slide. We all work and talk to each other very closely, so I'm sure any inquiry will eventually make it to the right destination. But that's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Matt and Rosie. So I'm now going to hand over to our final speaker, Maria. Maria, you should now have control.
Hi everyone, my name's Maria Trail. I'm a Senior Investment Manager with Arts and Humanities Research Council, and I sit within the infrastructure portfolio there. So the AHRC as a research council has only just started building its infrastructure portfolio, and as such it's relatively new to the sphere of facilities and capability funding. All independent research organisations such as galleries, libraries and museums fall under the AHRC umbrella and have therefore provided many facilities that have been accessible to the public for over 100 years. As yet, we don't have a catalogue of our services available, but this will be coming in the future. The aim of today's very short whistle-stop tour is to share what AHRC have been doing to enable equitable access to facilities, resources and services that are used by the research and innovation communities in order to conduct their research and foster innovation in their fields. So our recent facilities include our world-class labs portfolio. This was launched in 2020 as part of a £300 million investment into world-class research infrastructure announced by the UK government. As well as supporting science and innovation and the funding of facilities for collections-led research, it aims to deliver benefits to the UK economy and to help tackle global challenges. The first tranche of funding for AHRC was £25 million. So CAPCO was the AHRC's first live infrastructure call and the Council's first capital funding call. This call ran from 2020 through to 2022. There was a focus on conservation and heritage science facilities via collections-led research, and it worked with galleries, libraries and museums. As well as focusing on conservation, attention was given to digital capture equipment and specialist study spaces and reading rooms. The portfolio includes, but is not limited to, facilities based at the University of Cambridge, the National Gallery and Cardiff University. A nice example of the funding is a project based at the University of Bradford looking at capability for human bioarchaeology in digital collections, a grant used to develop research into two significant collections, a world-leading collection of human skeletal remains and a digital heritage collection of 3D replication of heritage sites, museum collections and large-scale marine surveys of lost landscapes. The overall portfolio is worth around £40 million. The WCL portfolio was expanded in 2022 through to 2024 via the CRCRM tranche of WCL funding. This programme was launched to include the specialist needs of practice-based research institutions such as small specialist institutions and Guild higher education members. Funding was awarded to projects including robotics at the University of the West of England and also future fashion at University of the Arts in London. A nice example of a project is the Royal College of Music. This was a grant to enable a major upgrade and expansion of RCM's pioneering performance simulator facility into a comprehensive dual-strand performance lab, including 110 capacity, fully accessible audio space. This upgrade enables musicians and indeed many other skill sets, including public speakers, for example, to make the transition from practice room or an office to a concert hall or a large venue with state-of-the-art acoustic modelling facilities. The lab opened in February this year. The CRCRM portfolio consists of around 23 projects and is worth around £26 million. In November 2023, the CoStar programme was launched. It's a national infrastructure network worth around £75 million for creative technology. This programme consists of 5 awards. While it has a focus on screen and performance, it's a cross-cutting idea with wider creative industries and enabling creative technologies. It is academic research and development, but it's also co-located within industry. The labs are due to open later this year. There'll be a national lab looking at applied research and prototyping, knowledge exchange and commercialisation. There'll also be 3 network labs of distributed geographies with a creative technology focus, and there'll also be a foresight lab used to collect, analyse and disseminate industry data. So looking at our future facilities, one for AHRC is the new £80 million infrastructure investment into national capability in heritage and conservation science. This programme built on the success of the earlier CAPCO funding. There'll be 30 nodes of funding across all 4 devolved regions across the UK. Richards is a grant funding programme to support reference collection facilities and a new digital research service. The first tranche of awards will begin this summer with a programme launch in early October. The awards will be supported by a team based at the infrastructure headquarters in Daresbury, which is the UK Tech campus that Hugh mentioned earlier. The Riches Access Fund will be a competitive funding opportunity run through Riches to fund access to heritage science facilities and collections. The funding will be used to cover the cost to both the facility user and the providers to help make access to heritage science more equitable for the wider research community. More information will be available on this in due course. So our digital research capability. AHRC's digital research capability is a relatively new development. Phase 1 began in 2021 and ran through to earlier this year. Funding came from a centrally held digital research infrastructure pot that was devolved to councils for both pilot and scoping activities. AHRC funded 4 already existing data repositories that had been part of the Arts and Humanities Data Service in order for them to scale up their activities and expand their service precision. These data repositories were the Oxford Text Archive at the Bodleian Library based at the University of Oxford, the Shared Repository Service at the British Library, the Archaeology Data Service at the University of York, and finally the Distributed System of Scientific Collections based at the Natural History Museum. This DISCO data will support mining and geological exploration industries and help make this data more readily available. It will also have a role in allowing the industry to use the data to do things better and faster in a less risky way. Phase 2 of the programme began earlier this year and runs through till next year, and the funding came again from a centrally held digital research infrastructure pot to deliver elements of the UKRI digital research infrastructure strategy. AHRC have provided uplifts to existing DRI funded investments, the 4 repositories that I've just mentioned, as well as also funding the museum data service based at the University of Leicester, And there's also a pilot approach to community building around substantial digital research resources through AI for Arts, Culture and Heritage project. And this is being hosted by the Alan Turing Institute. So that was a very quick whistle-stop tour, but thank you for listening. And any questions, please do either email me or the info inbox at AHRC, and we can try to answer your questions. And I will hand back to Alex.
Thank you very much, Maria, and to all the speakers. I'm just going to invite everyone to come online in case we need to answer some questions. So we have a few unanswered questions and the team are going to try and answer those in the background, but just the ones that we've said we're going to answer live. Just remove case spotlight. Bear with me a moment. There we go, you should be able to see everyone now. Just on the questions around fit to the scheme and about access to facilities. So you don't need to be able to be accessing a facility to be eligible for the scheme or accessing two facilities to be eligible for the scheme. What you do need is to cross the remits of 2 research councils. And then the question around multidisciplinarity, in particular around medicine. So the CRCRM scheme is very much around interdisciplinary research. And the difference between those can be found on the pre-announcement page, where there is a video from myself and Catherine Lyle, who did help do the training of our interdisciplinary assessment college, outlines the difference between these and how to demonstrate your application is interdisciplinary. Multidisciplinary applications should still go through the single research council calls on the through the cross-council remit agreement. There was a question around the facilities relating to the building industry. Now, I don't think we have any particular facilities, but I'm going to invite Richard in, who might have a little bit to say about access to the the catapult centres, which might be relevant.
Well, I mean, as Alex said, not entirely sure from the details of what the question was in terms of the actual research that was going to be done. I think actually there aren't any facilities that we've gone through today which are directly relevant. I guess it was just pointing out activities such as the high value manufacturing catapult does some work in this area, and I think one of the IKC specific does some work about low carbons and building. We've also just funded one of the circular economy hubs that is directly looking at buildings and the sustainability, but that doesn't really fall into the remit of this particular call and the access to facilities from that. But just to say, stuff is happening, but not necessarily within the facilities.
Thank you, Richard. I'm mindful that we've gone to time due to sort of my bad chairing, but so I will close the webinar, but we will get those. There's a couple of questions still unanswered. If you do have any more questions, please do put them in the Q&A function now, and we will make sure that those are answered and circulated, and we will circulate a copy of the slides as well to everyone who has registered. But just want to say thank you very much to all the speakers today. I hope you found the webinar useful in giving an oversight of the UKRI facilities. And also just to thank the team behind the scenes, Michaela, Caroline and Joe, who've been helping managing all the technicalities and the questions. And finally, just to say thank you to everyone who's joined us today, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you very much.